I'm Mike Farrington. Welcome back to my woodshop, aka the boardroom. And in this video, I'm going to build a couple of built-ins on either side of a fireplace. I would describe this project as very normal for me. I've done something similar probably 50, maybe even 100 times in my storied and glorious woodworking career. I normally don't film small projects like this one because of the added time filming takes. I really count on these small projects to have a very quick turnaround so I could make a couple of bucks. But in this case, I decided to break out the cameras, slow down my pace a little, and film this project. I hope you find it useful. If not useful, maybe mildly entertaining. And in terms of construction, this is about as simple as it gets. The cases are made from MDF and poplar. Joinery is screws, pocket screws, biscuits, and some wood glue. Anytime I'm making built-ins, I always start by breaking down the sheet goods first. And if you're wondering what the heck I'm doing, I rough cut parts oversized on my sliding table saw, then I rip to exact width on my traditional table saw, then I head back over to the sliding table saw to cut to length. And I do it this way because I strongly prefer to make rip cuts on a traditional table saw. I do not like making rip cuts on a sliding table saw because I have to reach across the carriage to make the cut. That's uncomfortable for me. I dislike it so much I actually took the rip fence off of my sliding table saw. If you're thinking that you need a sliding table saw to build a project like this one, you're wrong. I didn't always have this saw. When I first started out, I had a skill saw and an edge guide and a small job site table saw, and I was able to produce projects very similar to this one. So don't let lack of tools stop you from attempting this project. And to further my point, if I had it my way, I wouldn't have a sliding table saw. I would have a gigantic CNC machine that would cut out all these parts automatically. Collecting tools is very expensive and it takes a long time, even if you're a professional. So don't let lack of tools slow you down. Just get to work and get the job done. After cutting all the parts to size, I add some pocket holes, and I also use my biscuit joiner to cut a slot in the shelves. And you'll see how all this comes together as the video unfurls before you. Next, I move on to assembly. I staple the parts together. This is just to hold them in place. Then I break out the screw gun and I use 1 3/4 number 8 cabinet assembly screws to join the cabinet. And if you're wondering whether staples and screws are strong enough to hold a cabinet together, I would say probably not alone. But I am going to add a back, which I screw on, and also a face frame. And I think this combination creates for a very strong cabinet that's still pretty easy to put together. At this point, the basic cabinet boxes are constructed and they're patiently waiting for a face frame. So I get started by milling up some lumber. At this point, the pieces are slightly oversized, maybe an inch or two long, and I'm cutting them right now to about a 32nd over in width. Then I come back and cut to final length, and lastly I use my EdgeTech sanding disc and a table saw to clean up the edges of the pieces and bring them down to my exact final dimension. And the last step is to clean up the edges with the EdgeTech sanding disc. I do this last because it cleans up the bandsaw marks and it also cleans up any blowout from the chop saw cuts that I make when cutting these to length. If you're interested in more information about this sanding disc, I have a video on my channel. Take a look. The Mighty Pocket Screw is my preferred method for joining face frames. It's fast, it's easy, and it's plenty strong, especially when a little glue is added to the joint. And one last quick task before assembling the face frames. I like to add some biscuit slots to the mid rails, and I do this because I don't like to hold them on with pocket holes because you would be able to see those pocket holes from the underside of the shelves. Coffee offsets my sleep deficit due to being self-employed and having 2 young kids. After that delightful coffee break, I collect the necessary tools and supplies to assemble face frames. I use 1¼ screws, glue, clamp, pretty normal stuff. I do really like these magnetic attachments that go onto a driver. They help hold the screw in place and ease the tedious task of assembling a face frame. And an overhang on my bench helps with clamping the pieces together during assembly. A couple of pro tips for assembling face frames. 1, don't over tighten the screws. The workpieces can split. 2, I think it's real important to use glue for a couple of reasons. 1 is it does add some strength to the joint, but 2, it fills that joint and fuses those 2 pieces of wood together, which will prevent little hairline cracks from developing in the paint years down the line. Here's my secret method for ensuring that the spacing of my mid-rails is consistent. I just use spacers. Couldn't be easier. I know it's a little rudimentary, but it works perfect every time, and sometimes the simplest solution is the best one. Nextly, it's time to install the face frame onto the cabinet. I pick a side, usually the top, I clamp it in place and screw it down, and I work my way around all 4 sides. And the only key to this process, just make sure it's flush where it needs to be and the overhangs are consistent where they need to be. Alright, so you remember way back in this video 4 minutes and 6 seconds ago when we cut that slot with my biscuit joiner? Well, here's where the rubber meets the road. And the point of cutting the long slot is so that I don't have to measure and mark where the biscuits are going to be. I can cut the long slot, I can cut the biscuits at random on the mid rails, and I know that everything will line up and the biscuits will have a home. And by installing these shelves after the face frame has been attached, I ensure that there's no stepping between the shelf and the face frame. So it ends up being a simple matter of adding some glue, clamps, making sure that everything's square, and then finally screwing the shelves in place from the outside of the cabinet. There are a variety of really good ways to assemble cabinets. You might be looking at my method and thinking that this guy's nuts, and that's fine, everybody's welcome to their opinion. But I've assembled a bunch of cabinets, many different ways over the course of my career, and for whatever reason, for me, this just seems to be the way that yields me fast results that are really good quality and consistent. And last but not least, I attach the back. I start by stapling the perimeter, then I carefully measure and mark where the shelves are. I do not want any blowouts at this point. I have too much time wrapped up into this cabinet to be making goofy mistakes. Then I staple the shelves down and I finish it off with some 1¼ screws. And when dealing with large and heavy cabinets, it's always a good idea to have a strategy to move them around the shop. I like furniture dollies, but getting them on and off the bench can be a little tricky. I have this scissor lift bench that really aids in that process. It makes it very easy to move large and heavy cabinets around. If you're interested in more information about this bench, I have a video on my channel. It's called A Modern Cabinet Maker's Workbench. It's a pretty good video. I suggest you watch it. In fact, it might even be the best video on YouTube. Most of the time, plywood is not flat. It's not usually this bowed, but it's normally not flat. I always like to set my pieces in an orientation where the bow is fighting itself. This will help make the pieces as flat as they can be. And this is just a simple toe kick. A toe kick is something that the cabinet's going to sit on. I like to always have a separate toe kick because I can put it in place, level it, and then I can just set the cabinet right on top and I know it's nice and level. In this particular case, I'm also going to attach the toe kick to the floor and then the cabinet to the toe kick because these cabinets are going to be installed against a brick wall and I don't want to have to drill through the back of the cabinet into the brick wall. And this is my method for making countertops for built-ins. I like to laminate 2 pieces of 3/4 inch MDF together. I find that this works better than adding a solid wood nosing to a piece of MDF because over the years, the solid wood and the MDF fight each other a little bit and a seam will end up showing in the paint. I also cut out some fillers, add a round over, and I add a round over to the inside edges of the cabinet as well. Also, I wanted to mention that this video focuses on the 2 cabinets on either side of the fireplace. This job, though, had a few other aspects to it to include another cabinet that fit in a hallway. I decided not to film that portion of the build because I was unable to get a camera in that space in the house. So if you see me working on another cabinet, that's the reason. And the last item on the punch list is primer. This job is spec'd to be installed, primed, and not painted. The whole house is going to be painted after I'm done with my installation. And I'm spraying on a shellac base white primer. Once the primer was dry, I loaded up and headed over to the job site. Here is my starting point. And I get started by installing the toe kick, making sure that it's level. Then I horse this cabinet in place. I built these cabinets 2 inches narrower than the opening, so I'd have 1 inch of play on either side of the cabinet. With that said, I still have to deal with some moldings. I have to remove them and get them out of the way, and I want to do as little of that as possible. The house is 100 years old, has plaster on the inside. Who knows how these baseboards were stuck on, so in this case, I just cut the quarter round out of the way. Next, I screw the cabinet down to the toe kick, and I add some construction adhesive in the gap between the cabinet and the wall. And I prefer the construction adhesive over a screw because this is an exterior brick wall. And next I move on to the most challenging part of this entire project, and that's fitting a countertop on 3 sides. I start by checking the corners to see how out of square they are and in which direction. Then I check all 3 surfaces to see if they're bowed. I then take measurements left and right, front and back in several places, and I make sure to take copious amounts of carefully curated notes. I then transfer those measurements onto the workpiece and make my cuts. I always leave the countertop a little fat so that then I can kind of wiggle it in place as much as I can without scraping the walls too much, although that does happen. And I can make some pencil lines and remove some more material, hopefully for a nice tight fit. And the countertop is held in place with a prodigious amount of construction adhesive. And the fillers get notched and nailed in place. I normally don't have a morning commute. I just walk from my house over to my shop, but on install days I have to load up and brave rush hour traffic. And I normally find myself listening to one of the wacky FM morning drive shows. Well, on this morning I was lucky enough to hear the song LA Woman, and the minute that song came on, it just set the mood for the rest of the day. I knew it was going to be a great day. So my song recommendation for this build video is LA Woman by The Doors. Such a great song. Let's close it out with a few finished shots. Remember, this is just primed. The whole room's going to be painted at some point in time. And as you can tell by the bundles of wire on the left side, that's where all the electronics are going to live. Overall, I'm really happy with the end results. I think that this project utilized the space that we had as best as possible. Thanks for watching. Till next time.